Well, welcome. Every lunchtime throughout April, I was going to spend 30 minutes just giving you an overview of what these different masterclasses are all about, and why we bothered to do them. As some of you know, I lead a number of accredited courses which lead to an examination. And whilst that's important, I think sometimes being able to have a deep dive is also really important. So let me give you a sort of flavour of what's going on here. This is the masterclass program, but it sits on a platform that I run called Changeability Pro. So those certificated courses that I'm talking about, they're also on there. So you can have online self-paced learning. But what we thought was important is to give a deep dive into maybe very current situations, very current subjects. So that's what we're looking for when we do these masterclasses. And the digital leadership one is one of a number that we've now created over time. So who is this for? What's the origin story? How did we end up with this? Well, I think some of the issues that we have is that perhaps digital leadership can sometimes feel somebody else's problem. It must be somewhere in IT. It's not my issue. It must be somebody else. And what we wanted to do with this masterclass is perhaps maybe just make things simple, make things work for everybody, make us realize, oh, maybe I can be part of the solution, and maybe I can have a voice, maybe I can have something to say, because we do know technology feels so overwhelming sometimes, and there are so many apps and so many platforms that we're actually using. So, and we still have to get the day job done, and we don't want to fall behind. So we wanted to give you some ways of keeping up and capturing what's going on. So what are the outcomes of this masterclass? I think it's understanding how relevant perhaps digital is to your world, and to your success. It's about giving you the opportunity to maybe learn some techniques that help you do the analysis of, well, what's happening? Where's this coming from? Should I be bothered about this? Is this important? And I think that's one of the things that I really took away. I found this so useful. I'm going to pick up on some of the slides from Mel, but ultimately it was about empowering me, actually, and I just feel a little bit more in control as a result of this masterclass. It was thought-provoking, and the thing is, it's about digital leadership. It's not about digital literacy, I suppose, in that this isn't a masterclass where I was trying to catch up with all the latest sort of platforms. This is about empowering me to have a way in which I assess, analyze, consider what's going on around me, and maybe what I should be interested in and what I need to take notice of, and maybe what I don't. So absolutely, I think the thing about this masterclass is it's more about empowerment. As somebody who is, I'm not heading up an IT function, or even if I was, that would just be the platforms that we're using at the moment. IT is not my day-to-day, digital is not my day-to-day, but yet, probably like you, I lead or I'm involved in a number of digital transformations. So help me out here. I'd love you to put into the chat, anybody give me some ideas about, are they involved in digital transformation? How big a part of their world is digital transformation? Or how confident do you currently feel about the word digital? Does it make you feel, oh my goodness, what do I know? What's going on? So let's have a quick look at the chat, and I'll read out some of your comments from the chat. So I'm just trying to get the meeting chat up. There we go. Okay, thank you for this. I was a bit scared of digital, to be honest. I think that's a really, Myra, I really appreciate you putting that in there, because I do think that partly is what we're talking about with this masterclass, is that really what we're trying to do is democratize our approach to digital. Nobody else has put any comments in the chat, so I'm just asking, I know there's quite a few of you on the call, so anybody put in anything where they feel the word digital. Yeah, Alice, I really appreciate that. Bridging the gap between the assumption that Teams is intuitive and everyone being grumpy rather than not having the training. Well, that's the point, isn't it? I think you've just hit the nail on the head about emotion related to digital services. Maybe it's a lack of somebody saying that they love it, but it's not confident at times. It's hard to, it's hard to be a leader. It's hard to create followship if you're not confident. I know when I'm dealing with the Agile Change Coach course, and we're looking at sort of techniques based on neuroscience, one of the things we talk about a lot is followship is a product of enthusiasm and knowledge and expertise and charisma. But if you don't have the expertise, that sort of pulls away that feeling of, I'm not very confident. Have we ever followed somebody who's not confident? Because if they're radiating uncertainty, we're not thinking, yeah, I definitely want to follow their lead. I do digital all the time, but I sometimes don't know where to start. Well, isn't that the truth? There's some great stuff in this. I'll show you a couple of slides in a minute. There's some great stuff in this masterclass, which is about positioning and where are we and where are we going, that I absolutely love. My role is digital transformation business change lead. I'm in the thick of it. Although really confident with tech and articulating it, it's the resistance to change from others, which is quite difficult slog. So that also brings me to another outcome from this masterclass, is the masterclasses aren't just about upskilling ourselves. I think what you'll find is that a lot of the worksheets, because we do attach a lot of collateral to the video sessions, you can sort of look at that and go, I can use that in a session myself. I can actually run that as an activity for others. So what we do is we encourage you to do activities within the masterclass, but then they are always designed in a way that you think you can use this in any team meeting, in any workshop. You could take the entire masterclass and the activities within it, and you could actually build yourself the activities for a workshop, a half-day workshop. I know that because I've done it. And I know that the feedback from the sessions that are within the masterclass go down really well, really thought-provoking. You could actually extend it to an entire day if you've got a lot of people and they are having a lot of conversations. So it just gives, these comments are really helpful because it just gives me things to think about that I can remind you in the masterclasses. Because Nita's saying, yeah, often there's an overwhelming amount of information to sift through. So yeah, this is about the outcome. Where are you starting from? How does digital really not just impact your job right now, but how might it impact your job in the future? And that's another one of those activities within the masterclass where you think, well, to be honest, that's really helpful because I could do that exercise with other people. So that's what I find to be particularly beneficial. So as I've said, I'll just give you a quick summary of the benefits. I think the benefits are you feel confident and in control. And that's what I want for all of you, is any of us that are in the change world, we're always being assessed for whether or not what we do is valuable. And so being confident is really important. So increase your success, increase your productivity, feel much more that actually the new technologies are not a threat, but perhaps you can portray them to yourself as an opportunity. That means you'll radiate that to other people. After all, a lot of our work is trying to influence, persuade, and encourage other people. And to recognize that ultimately we're going to have to look at technology and more as our partner. One of the things I'll keep you up to date with, that I've been doing a lot of work with senior leaders in the first quarter of this year, is we talk about the end goal. We talk about the vision of their change. One of the things we're starting to have a conversation about, because we've just gone past the 2 years when OpenAI put ChatGPT onto the market. We've had Copilot running for about a year, but there are many parts of the organization that are now starting to think, maybe we should have Copilot. So it's been a couple of years since we've opened the AI box. And I think that now we're starting to have conversations in any change that I lead, which is about the balance of how we use humans versus how we use machines. And this digital leadership masterclass also starts to tap into some of that, because we need to understand, how does a digital set of platforms, a whole infrastructure, start to affect how we work? How does it change the balance of what we do versus what can be automated? From automation, you get streamlining, and you start to realize that actually the end goal of many of our changes is a shift in what we're asking people to do. We're asking people to do more value added, more analytical, more engagement with customers, to do things that machines can't do. It's very difficult for a machine to build a compelling relationship with a customer who is then more likely to recommend your organization or to buy more from your organization or to tell their friends about how wonderful your organization is. So I think there's something in there around how the end goal of many of our transformations, even though on the surface they don't look like they're affected by digital in any way, really are. It's the balance of human and machine that I'm starting to notice. And as some of you know, I advise boards a lot of the time. So let's have a look at the masterclass breakdown.
So Mel,
yeah.
I just want to let you know that I'm here.
Oh, well, that's good. That's perfect timing. Here's Mel Ross, who wrote everything. So I will, I'll quickly go through and say we've got the contents slide up. So I've just said the introduction is always the same. It's just what's in it. And then we've got the next part is understanding digital leadership and the foils model. Any comment on that part of the masterclass?
Yeah, absolutely. And just as I was coming on to the call, I was hearing you talking about the relationship between the human and technology. And Mel, that's something that you and I spoke about so much, wasn't it, when we were designing this masterclass, which is digital leadership is about our relationship with technology as opposed to thinking about technology as a tool. And that's really, really important. And having worked in the world of digital leadership for over a decade now, the key thing that I've been pioneering is digital leadership is an identity that is a part of every single one of us, and not just for the select few or for the subject matter experts in the world. It's really something that is now part of everybody's life. It's an identity as opposed to a skill. And therefore, for the masterclass, for us, the structure that we have designed for this masterclass is about it being practice. It's about how does digital leadership become part of my practice so that I can stay in control, so that I can build a relationship with technology, so that I don't get overwhelmed. And I think one of the things that brought me into the world of digital leadership well over a decade ago was when I realized in my digital transformation consultancy how we'd entered into the world of this perpetual beta. You know, you even think about Outlook, what you might use for all of your emails and in your calendar. That's constantly being updated. It's constantly evolving. But the way that we think about technology in a traditional way is it's linear. So we wait for a training program. We wait until something new and big changes before we start to appreciate and evolve and learn. But actually, now we need to evolve and learn as part of our everyday practice. And the failure to have done that for so long has actually created so much overwhelm for all of us, and especially given that, you know, the world of technology and the world of digital, past historic, and I'm sure Mel's already said this to you, to everybody, is somebody else's job. Is somebody else's responsibility. But it can't be, not in this world of perpetual beta anymore. So that's really where the starting point was, Mel, wasn't it, for you and I with this masterclass is how do we begin with that? And as part
so
of...
that's why I put up on the screen right now your foiled model, the forward, the outward, the inward lens, and then the power of one. I know you're going to talk about the forward, the outward, and the inward in just a moment, but on here, would you explain what you meant by the power of one?
Absolutely. So the power of one is essentially the approach of becoming a digital leader, of getting back into control of your life, your work in a digital era. That's really what the power of one is all about. And it is how all of the techniques, all of the approaches, the protocols and the interventions are small enough for us all to be able to start to bring into our practice and into our life, as small as even 2 minutes, as you will see if you start the masterclass.
And there's a 20-day challenge on there that you can all see, guys. So you can see that actually we do put, it's all about the practical application. This slide here talks about the forward, the outward and the inward lenses. So I'm going to let Mel now give us a brief description of those. And then she's going to move on to 3 slides, which give you a feeling of the content of the masterclass.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Mel. So yes, the foils model, F for forward, O for outward, I for inward. All 3 of those are our digital leadership lenses that are practiced through small, the power of 1. And essentially, the forward lens is our ability to be able to face forward, to just look forward, to have the ability to maybe see the difference between a trend or an inevitability, our ability to be able to see what's coming around the corner without necessarily feeling anxious about it. So really being able to have that forward lens is so important for confidence. And then we've got the outward lens, and the outward lens is our ability to see what's going on around us. You know, we're so often, especially in a time poor and heavily distracted world, forced to just look down and become siloed in just need to get what I need to get done now, and can't really look up and see what's happening around us and see the wealth and the richness of diversity around us, which is a really key thing. So the outward lens is about our ability to observe and see around us diversity, to build not just connections, not even networks, but in the foils model, we help you to create ecosystems. And that's really, really exciting. Which brings me to the inward lens. And the inward lens is that there's a wonderful saying, which is from the seed of self-awareness, anything can grow. And in this digital world, we're often so perplexed and confused and overwhelmed by technology that we can forget our own strengths. We can forget our own value contribution to a project of change, to the job that we're doing. And the inward lens is really our ability to reconnect with our value contribution, our uniqueness, and then add that to forward and outward with these tiny little incremental shifts, the power of 1. And suddenly you've not just got confidence, you've got competence, and you're back in control.
Thank you for that. I'm going to put up, I know you've got 3 slides with the same target model on the right hand side. This one was talking about mapping your digital ecosystem, and appreciating you're giving a webinar when you can't see your own slides. I'll just remind you that we're talking about 7 elements: communication and connection, efficiency and productivity, learning, development and growth, self-care and mental health, creativity and thinking time, safety, security and ethics, and tech that's specific to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mel. And I'll try and remember that. And that's a really good, because I should be able to remember that, shouldn't I? So, yes, the mapping your digital ecosystem, this is what I call an intervention. And an intervention is an action that you take in order to gather the data to then start bringing in practices and techniques into your life that eventually become habits. So mapping your digital ecosystem is a fantastic tool and technique and intervention that we use in the masterclass to help you to really understand where your start point is. Where are you now in terms of your relationship with technology, with digital in your life? And that's across those 7 areas that Mel just mentioned to you all. And it's a really fantastic tool to use just so that you can find out how often you use particular technologies. How often do you update and get curious and learn new little techniques and new little updates that have happened in that technology? So it's a really in-depth tool to help you to just reconnect and understand your relationship and your start point with digital, with the technologies that you use right now?
What I found was really interesting was that having put up those 7 headings, it really made me think about what the headings meant to me. And I'm sure if anyone's doing this masterclass, they walk away with an overwhelming good grief. This is why my head feels so full. Look how many different apps and platforms I use. And I couldn't help but think, as I started to map this, I started to challenge myself to think, well, how many of them are talking to each other, and how many of them are sort of I'm using, and then maybe I have to go and repeat some of it somewhere else because they don't connect. So that was another learning point for me. So it was very much about breadth. And then it started to make me think about almost efficiency. Actually, is there a more joined up picture? Personally, I walked away, we've all got different learnings from the masterclass, but one of my learnings was, it's a phrase I really struggle to say, which is interoperability. But that became sort of my watchword as a result of doing this masterclass, which is about 5 months ago now, is that I really do think I'm always looking for connections, and I'm looking for overlaps and duplications. And I think that there is something that maybe we can all nod along to, which is the proliferation of digital tools within our organisations. And I feel now far more able to challenge when somebody says, oh, we should have a new something or other, and I'll ask, maybe we could squeeze some more use out of what we already have. So that was the difference that just this one little part of the masterclass made to me. I'm going on to this other slide now, which is I think this just highlights, you'd put a couple of these in here, which was identify the technologies you have access to across, you'd highlighted a couple of categories, hadn't you? Communication and connection, and efficiency and productivity. And you said things like, do you use them always, when required, rarely, or never? That was really thought-provoking. And maybe you could comment, Mel, on do you evolve as the technology evolves? Are you active or passive in how you adapt your behavior with the technology? So maybe you'd like to talk about some of the questions around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a really interesting one, because I know a few people have come back to me and given feedback of how thought-provoking that particular element of this single, I mean, this is just one tool in the masterclass that we're talking about here as well, which is quite interesting, Mel. But yeah, in terms of how you evolve with the technology, as the technology evolves, so many of us, I mentioned Outlook earlier on, and email, and all of the apps that you've got in Office 365. What tends to happen is we sit on them. So we become habitual, and we have our ways of working around these technologies, and we sit on them. We normalize, we get comfy without realizing that actually these technologies are constantly updating. So if we can become a little bit more conscious of that, what we're doing is we're increasing our metabolism, we're increasing our ability to change, the cadence of change and evolution. So we're really bolstering our metabolism around our relationship with digital technologies.
I love that. And I have to tell you guys, on this next slide, we just put up the last part of it was, imagine the shift in your confidence, control, productivity, time, energy, if you were able to evolve more with the pace of digital technologies. And I'm just going to give a couple of examples. Again, having taken the masterclass 5 months ago, one of the things that I did is it really challenged me to use, actually it's a part of Office 365, which was about automatically scheduling appointments. So I've actually gone in there and used their scheduling tool to allow people to book, funny enough, demonstrations of the Changeability Pro platform with me. I'd never done that before. I tried the Calendly app a few years ago, found it deeply confusing, and had sort of given up. But now with Microsoft, it connects to my Outlook, and I found it easier, but I challenged myself to do it. The other weekend, I carry my credit cards and debit cards around in a little metal case that protects them from being scammed. But I thought, do you know what? I'm not using the digital wallet on my phone. And I sat down with my husband and I forced him to sort of show to me how to load the cards, how to work it. And we had a bit of a discussion because I have an Android phone, and did I want the Samsung wallet or the Google wallet? And, you know, we just got into this kind of conversation. But the point was that I decided, no, I'm going to try and catch up. This is not new technology, is it? I mean, one of my colleagues is always paying for stuff using a watch. So I'm not exactly cutting edge here, but it goes back to Mel's comment from earlier on about it's an opportunity to catch up. And what I've done is I've tried to change my behavior. The lasting outcome from this masterclass for me has been digital's not my problem. It's something that's done to me by the IT department. To no, I'm in control of my own digital personality and my own digital profile, and I need to keep growing. I love that. Increase your metabolism for it, increase the speed at which you can consume. Yeah, I totally agree. But it's definitely made me more open to prodding myself. Come on, Mel, try it out, give it a go. So once every 1 to 2 weeks, you will find me using some other functionality that I wasn't before. It just prods me a little bit. So Mel, and in conclusion for your masterclass, I just want to say thank you, because it has made me a more credible and more authentic leader in the world in which I work. If any of that sounds interesting to any of you, just get on with the masterclass. You can either buy it direct at £495, or funnily enough, you can get onto the Changeability Pro platform. That is £495 for the year, and do all the masterclasses and use all of the techniques. Share your digital badge. We've made sure that every masterclass has all the metadata behind it, so that you've got a credible digital badge that you can share across LinkedIn, for example. Nobody can ever take that away from you. People can click on it and they can understand what it is that you studied. And we've had so many people take the Digital Leadership Masterclass since it was launched and love it. But also you might occasionally see those messages being shared across LinkedIn if you're connected with any of them. But it's just a great thing to build your own authority in this area. And of course, tune in for more masterclass quick guides. Next week, I'm doing the Change Agent one. Last week, we had a look at imposter syndrome with SD Briggs, so you can get the recording for that. And then Myra's coming up with Scaling for Change just after Easter. And then I'll finish off the series with Change for Non-Change Managers. So register, even if you can't attend live for the others, you will get sent the recording. We're up to the 30 minutes, and I want to thank Mel for making all of that effort to, even though she could no longer see the screen and she could no longer sit in her own office and do this, but she actually ran up the road to find some Wi-Fi so she could connect. So for that, I'm very grateful. Thank you, Mel.